In this video, we're going to look at a digital amplifier that uses the TAS-5766M amplifier chip from Texas Instruments. This is called the SA-50 Plus, put out by SMSL, and it also features a built-in multimedia player for your digital files on SD or USB. Let's take a look. So this is an SMSL. It's a model SA-50 Plus. It's a digital amplifier, and it's capable of up to 192 kilobits, 32-bit PCM and FLAC and MP3 and all the other files. Let's take a look at this thing. I just got sent this unit to evaluate, so this is the first time I've seen it myself. So let's unbox it, and before we even get into this thing, let's take a quick look at the specifications. So we look at the specifications here. It actually sports some pretty impressive specs, like your total harmonic distortion is 0.015%, has a signal to noise ratio of 95 dB and 94 dB channel separation. And here's our sampling rate. We can do 16-bit or 24-bit, 44.1 kilohertz to 192 kilohertz, and the output is rated at 50 watts plus 50 watts into 4 ohms. The power consumption is 40 watts. It's because this is going to be a Class D or a digital amplifier. We can have up to 1,000 files on our memory card, and here's some of the formats it supports. So it'll support MP3, anywhere from 8 kilohertz to 48 kilohertz, and up to 320 kilobits or variable bit rate. We look at some of the other file formats it supports. It'll support WMA, including WMA lossless, right? Again, up to 96 kilohertz, and wave extension up to 192 kilohertz in 8, 16, or 24 bit. Your WMA is 16 or 24 bit. AAC, which is your Apple standards, right? Advanced audio compression that Apple uses a lot of, which is AAC, in sampling rates from 8 kilohertz all the way to 96 kilohertz. It supports the APE extension from Monkey Audio. And of course, here's the big one, FLAC, which is your lossless compression. So it'll support anywhere from 8K to 192 kilohertz sampling rate in either 8, 16, or 24 bit. And of course, Apple lossless, which is also an M4 or M4A format, again up to 96 kilohertz, and it'll even support Q format, whatever that is. I'm not even familiar with that one myself. And here's some of the features it has, and we'll take the unit out and take a look at it. But it comes with a remote control. Actually, this looks to be a nice little thing, and it comes with, I guess this is the same manual, just a little printed a little bit bigger, a little easier to read, but it's got basically the same information on it as the small manual in English. Okay, that's out of the way. Oh, some of the other things that these guys sell. They even have a tube amplifier. That might be an interesting one. That might be an interesting unit to check out sometime. Anyway, let's take a look at the unit, because I know you guys are just dying to see this thing. I haven't seen it yet myself, so this is the first unboxing, as to say. Open up the package here, and here we have a power brick. Looks to be, 19 volts output at 6.3 amps. So this is a pretty good beefy power supply that it comes with an AC cord, of course. And of course, the remote control. And this is the unit itself. Packaged in here really well. Is there anything underneath here? Probably not. No. Nothing underneath here. It doesn't come with any patch cords or anything. Just set that aside and unpackage the little playback unit. And there it is. It's got a little digital display on here. We'll take off the protective coating. And on the front, you've got a track skip back, a track skip forward, play, pause, and power. And you've got a dial here that can control the volume, and if you push it in, it'll select menus. On the back of the unit, you've got your power socket, you've got your speaker terminals, left and right, and you've got your input devices. And on the back here, you can plug in a 3.5 millimeter, either an analog input or an optical. So if you have an optical cable, that will connect this to your CD player or to your computer or whatever other devices. This is a dual function jack. You've also got a USB input and a micro SD input, so you can load your files onto a USB stick and play it. And that's how we're going to actually test this thing. I'm going to load some files. Actually, I have some files right here that I can play for you guys from the Music Bakery. So this is my royalty-free content. This is actually normally what I have playing on my little FM transmitter that I can use for testing radio. So we're going to use the same files off of this one. So it's going to get my speaker wires here, and we'll attach the left and the right speakers. Got some nice beefy binding posts here. And you can put some pretty good gauge wire. You can put nice 16 gauge wire on here, no problem. Probably even go a little more than 16 gauge. I'm just using, you know, I'm sure I'm going to catch hell from somebody for this. This is not Cat 5 wire, by the way. This is actually Cat 3 wire. It's just that I found a box of it, so I'm using it whenever I can. It was somebody threw out a box of it, because this stuff's kind of useless for data because it doesn't have the required twists on it. It's basically just 4 pairs of wire, but there's not a lot of twist on this thing. It's just 4 pairs of like telephone wire. So I basically just put all 4 pairs together. I've taken all the white wires and used those for the negative, and all the colored wires will use those as the positive. So that gives me, you know, probably the equivalent of pretty close to a 16 gauge conductor. But someone's not going to like it. I'm going to upset somebody for doing this. I can just sense it now. Okay. Speakers are connected. Let's get the power supply hooked up to this thing. Green light comes on to tell us that everything's working. I'll just plug in the power here. It has a nice little, it almost looks like it's an OLED screen. And it's currently set to optical digital. Okay, push and hold, and I can select my input. And the rating on this is actually quite small. So those that need glasses are going to have to put their reading glasses on to read that, because it is very small. But if you select input and press the knob in, it'll let you select your input. Where are we here? Input. Okay, here we go. Optical in, auxiliary, that would be the analog input, SD card, and USB. And no, it does not have a Bluetooth receiver, but I could hook my Bluetooth receiver into this thing. I have a Bluetooth receiver that's got an analog output. I could connect that in, but we're going to select USB because that's what I'm going to use, is USB. And now I can just plug my USB stick in. We'll plug that into the back here, whichever way it goes in. I guess it goes in like that. And it should read the files that are on here, which it is. It's now searching or scanning, and there we go. It starts playing. Some pretty good volume, actually. Next track, if I press the button here, play the next track. There's 300 tracks on here, and it tells me. And it's actually in random mode, as you can see. This is track number 24. This is 44.1 kilohertz, 128 kilobits, which is what I encoded this at. Not the best, but it'll do the job. Right now it's in random playback, as you can see. Now if I want to change that, I can probably do that through the menu here. If I press in menu, it gives you the name of the track up here as well, right? It gives you your time, your elapsed time, tells you, so it tells you the name of the track that's playing, tells you the time that it's played, and it tells you the file format, 44.1, 128 kilobits, and it's an MP3. So depending on what format it's in, it's going to tell you. Volume here. Now if I press the button in, What will that do? Okay, that mutes it. If I press and hold, it probably, here we can go down to SDB off and on. That's, I have to play with that and see what it does. Press and hold. We'll see what that does to the sound. Okay, it changes the sound. It's almost like a loudness control. Tone. Bass. Goes up +3. It doesn't go down though. It's interesting. And treble. Where are we here? You have three settings for bass and treble. Press and hold. Play mode. Press and hold. Oops. Okay, here we go. Repeat all. So you got default, which is just going to play them all. Repeat all, random, and repeat track. And by default, it comes in the random mode, which is probably where most people are going to leave this player. If you're going to use one of these things for having background music right into a half-decent pair of speakers, and that's what these are basically designed for. These are designed for someone who wants to have a background system. They don't necessarily want to have music playing off their phone. They may have a bunch of music they've downloaded onto a USB stick or onto an SD card. Maybe their CD collection they've ripped or whatever, and they've put it onto a memory stick or an SD card. They just want to have background music on some half-decent speakers. So you would connect one of these things to a half-decent pair of speakers, and then you have a background music system. Now, we can control everything also from the remote control here. So when it gets to the next track here, it just picks another track at random, as you can see. What else do we get in the menu here? If I go into display, what does display tell me? So auto weaken the screen or auto turn off. So you can have the screen dim, they call it weaken the screen, or you can turn that off so that the screen stays bright all the time. You can have it up to 60 seconds where the display will get dimmer. Some people, like myself, would like to leave that off because I want to see the screen always running so that I know what's playing. And then version information, or version info, which just tells you what version is on here and the date. That way if an update comes out, you can update it, and the instructions actually tell you that you can update it. You load it onto a USB drive and plug it in, and it'll update the firmware. And reset, well, that'll just reset everything to factory default. So one thing I'm liking so far about this remote control is that it uses standard AAA batteries, not those stupid CR3032 button cells which so many of these compact remotes use, because they always go dead at the most inconvenience time, and not everybody has those batteries on hand. Okay, for the remote control, got the manual here to tell me what buttons do which. 3 of the buttons don't do anything. The ones marked A, B, and C. A is just because this remote control can control different devices. So it's for this particular model, for the SA-50 Plus, everything's on the function A button. So if you punch function B or function C, nothing is going to work, right? Nothing's going to happen. If I give some volume here, the volume buttons aren't going to do anything. Nothing's going to happen. If you see the red light come on here and nothing happens when it nothing responds, press the A button, because that'll tell the unit itself to go into the correct function mode for this control. So if I press A, that tells the remote control that the buttons here are going to control this unit. So the up and down buttons here control your volume. The left and right change tracks. Goes loud. This thing goes very, very loud. Your function key over here, the one marked FN, that will turn on and off the loudness, or what they call the SDB. So that's off. And you'll hear the difference here. I'll pick another song. Okay, here we can hear the difference. So you hear the boost of the bass and the treble. And now it's off. So that's your bass control. Your equivalent of a loudness control. It's just a digital bass and treble. This one here is your audio source selection. So when you press this button, you can switch inputs like to your SD card. So you can actually have a USB stick loaded with music and have an SD card loaded with more music. That way you can switch between them. You can also switch to your optical input or your auxiliary input. Just remember that it's the same plug. So if you've got an optical cord plugged into it, you're not going to be able to use auxiliary without changing it. If you have an auxiliary cord plugged into it, if you want to use optical, you're going to have to change the actual plug on the back. But it's selected here. USB, SD, optical, and auxiliary, and then back to USB. Other functions on here, you've got your menu key. So if you press it just quickly, it'll pause you. So play and pause. Mute will shut off the sound without actually stopping the music from playing. And of course, power will shut the entire unit off. Power will turn it back on. Looks like it's going to start playing on the track it left off too, but it starts it from the beginning. What else do we have on here? Pretty simple. Oh, press the enter button here, and that'll take you into your menus. So you can adjust your menus. As you can see, I can switch through all the different modes here. If I want to go into play mode, then I can select it, select the different play modes, press and hold a long key to exit that. That's basically it. I know what you guys want to see. You guys want to see what's inside this thing. So let's take this unit apart and see what makes it tick. Now, personally, I love these type of players. This is right up my alley because I'm not one that streams music from my phone. I use my phone for phone calls and for email and messaging and stuff. I don't have much music stored on my phone. I do stream over Bluetooth from one of my old phones just to a Bluetooth receiver, just so that I can have music playing, but I can just as easily do that with this now. And I have that other little Bluetooth board that has the USB on it that I can take an audio out from that, but this is actually a heck of a lot more convenient. I can just set this up in a room with a pair of speakers and I've got instant music. Now to open this thing up, we need to use a Torx bit because they're using Torx screws on the back of this thing, so let's just open it up. But the only thing they could have done to this unit to make it even better than it is to add Bluetooth capability for those that want to use Bluetooth. If they had Bluetooth capability on this thing, it would be the ultimate. They use really nice screws for the front. The back screws are just standard screws, but you see the front? They use really nice screws to attach the front, and they're countersunk, so they sit flush. Really quite impressed with the build quality of what I've seen before even opening it up. Just looking at the cabinet of it, it seems to be really well made. We'll find out in a minute when I get the last of the screws out here and open this unit up. We'll see what's inside it. Okay, top comes off. And here is the unit. Check that out. That's actually very well done. Let's see whether I can actually remove the front faceplate and then we can slide the circuit board right through so you can see what's on the bottom side of this thing. So there's the unit from the bottom. So you can see it's got a heat sink here. This is going to be the audio output. There's not much to see on the bottom. I just wanted to show you guys that they actually have a heat sink here that makes contact with the bass. it slides into these grooves here. So it is heat sunk, and it is making contact with the base of the unit here. So let's put that back together. As you can see here, the heat sink actually is making contact, so it digs into the metal. It adds tension to it. So that's what holds, that's what cools the output IC here, is that heat sink, which is actually physically pressed up against the metal cabinet. This is our display board. We'll just put that back around here, put that back through, and put the control back on. Control knob goes back on. Okay, let's get a closer up. So it looks like they're building their own boards. As you can see, it's got their own logo on it, SMSL. It tells you here it's the SA-50 Plus main board. This is the core board. So this is going to be the processor and the audio decoder ICs. Our interface is over here. You can see the interface wires going down through the circuit board here to bring the interface for the different formats into the chips themselves. Very few parts on here. This is the amplifier chip. You've got some filters, some output chokes, because it is a Class D or digital amplifier, or some people will call it a PWM, pulse width modulated amp, which I'm sure that it is, but for simplicity's sake, we'll call it a digital amplifier, because the signal coming out of here is essentially a square wave or a digital signal. It's a 1 or a 0, right? It's not an analog signal. The analog audio is converted by means of the filter capacitors here and these chokes, these toroidal chokes, which take out the high frequency component, and you end up with your digital signal. Fairly good size, hefty wire here connecting the outputs here, as you can see, for the output wires. Now this will be a BTL output. We can prove that by just measuring for any continuity between the two negative terminals if they were a common, but as you'll see here, if I measure it, there's no continuity between the two negative terminals. So you need a separate positive and negative wire for each speaker. You cannot connect it to a common system where the two negative wires are grounded together. That's why I connected it up to separate speakers rather than using my PSB shop speakers, because my existing speaker system is connected along with my Sony stereo amp that I use in the shop for testing, and the grounds are common on it. And I basically just paralleled my test lead that I use up here, or just parallel to the speakers, and when I want to test something, I actually turn the speakers off. If I didn't turn the speaker button off on here, when I was testing something through these wires, I'd blow up my amplifier. So when I'm testing, that's why the two here, I've got these two tied together to remind me that they are common. If I put my meter across these two here, it will be a dead short, because they're both connected to the negative terminals on this, which go to the speaker, but this unit is not a BTL output. So the negative terminal on the speaker is connected to ground. So these other units, these ones are a BTL output, and they require a separate wire. They cannot be grounded together, or you will damage the output IC. Let's get another close look here. So I'm going to look at this with the microscope, and we'll do some recording on this with the microscope itself, so you guys can see how well this thing is put together. Get some nice close-ups of the soldering here on these ICs. Looks to be good. That all looks really good. I don't see any concern here with the manufacturing. I'm just looking at this with my microscope, and I mean, everything looks to be really well done in here. So that's a look at the SA-50 Plus by GemTune. Their website is www.gemtuneonline. That's the manufacturer's website. But that's a look at the SMSL SA-50 Plus unit. Hey, it looks to be pretty good. I'm happy. I'm going to put this thing to use. I'm probably going to be using this thing every day. I have lots of places I can use this thing. I like to have background music, and this would be perfect for it. I can load up to 1,000 tracks onto like a 32 gig memory stick and just let it play at random and have full remote control of it. That looks pretty cool to me. I'm going to be putting this thing to use, and well, the link where this came from is on the video here. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you again in the next one real soon.